Hey, and welcome back to NGF. My name's Andrew. I'm here with Anthony, Dylan, and Mila. We got a really stacked crew today. And I'm excited because we're starting a new series. We're going to be talking about some articles. We'll come up with a creative name later. But right now, I just want to get to, the meat and potatoes. The Galaxy played a little bit of a disappointing game on Saturday. I think you can call it that. Lots of really interesting talking points. Anthony has talked about it in his articles. Dylan, Mila, and I, they went into it really deeply last weekend on Clash of Cosmos. So we've already had lots of good conversation about it. But I had a little bit to say. I had an article put out, and I think it might be a nice place to start a conversation. I want to definitely touch on a lot of the topics you guys did, but basically I want to get to the bottom of what's going on with the Galaxy. This is going to be a nice little Socratic seminar type feeling, a debate. But all that aside, I think we're ready to jump into it with that first topic, which is misusing Marco Royce. Something we talked about in my latest article. It was something I've been kind of mentioning for a little bit. Is I'm not a big fan of how Greg Vanney uses Marco Royce. He's explained it to us in the press conferences, and it does make sense. He said that he wants Marco up in that attacking third, does really want to see him leaving that space, which does make sense. That really is where you get, quote unquote, the best of Marco Royce, or at least the most XG maybe out of Marco Royce, where he can make one quick, two little passes. They're not going to be a ton of those passes, but they're going to be really dangerous when they do happen. And when you think of the goal threat you had in front of him, Klaus, Peck, Paintsel, that should be more than enough to create a couple of goals. But as we're seeing, there's just something not quite there. Something definitely us Clash of Cosmos boys have talked about really since the preseason is this hole, this vacuum in the midfield. And my point, I guess, is that with Marco Royce so far up in that attacking third, he's not there to be in that midfield to fill that space and to actually get the Galaxy moving. That's something that I feel like would have helped us not concede that first goal in that last game. It's really, there's a lot of possession. Edwin Cerrillo playing with Maya Yoshida in the midfield. Elijah Winder not really doing a great job being an option. And then Marco Royce just all the way basically as a winger. Maya has no options, puts a pass in a congested middle. Yamane loses it, and then we all know what happens from there. So if we have maybe an option there, someone like Marco Royce who can navigate these tight, congested spaces and help the Galaxy move the ball and potentially progress it to these wingers, I think that's something that could be more effective. That's what my point was, and now I'd love to hear from you guys. And I think we'll start with the debutant. I want to hear from Anthony. What's kind of your take on all that?
All right, man. First things first, I want to say thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. But I mean, my take is that I agree, but I understand why, in theory, you might want Marco up top because, I mean, first things first, he's what, 37, 38 years old. You know what I mean? There's a lot of miles on those legs. It's a long season. Maybe Greg doesn't want to put as many, as much wear and tear on Marco. Maybe he moves him into the midfield, after the World Cup, second half of the season, rolls it out that way. I could see that happening too. You know what I mean? Trying to conserve him for the later parts of the season and not having Eric Tommy, I think definitely was a huge blow to that. You know what I mean? He did come on in the second half against Colorado. I think, once he gets warm, he should be able to take some of that load off and then fill that gap in the midfield. Now, it sucks because he didn't really have a preseason, right? So it's going to take some time, and he's a little bit behind schedule, to be honest. So we'll see. I think it'll take some time. March might be a rough month, but once Tommy's fully, acclimated by April, I think should be a true litmus test about whether, okay, is this midfield problem solved yet or what?
That's a great point, but we're talking about waiting till April for something. It's a little bit, interesting. I saw Dylan making a couple of faces. What do you think about everything?
I always make faces when it comes to Marco Royce, and I think that me and Mila, I think we're not scapegoating Marco Royce because I don't think it should be the reason that he's being criticized. I think that he's been one of our best players so far this season, and the stats back it up. I was looking at him earlier. With some of the least touches on the team, he's creating the most chances. I think it's like 36 touches a game and 2.3 key passes a game. So there's two things with that. One, like Marco Royce should have way more touches. And so the question is, how do you get more touches out of him? And then the second part of it is, are we really utilizing the system to fit around Royce, or are we just chucking Royce into a system that's not perfect for him? And I think that's actually where I when you talk about misusing Royce, I think that there is only one place for him to play, and it's currently where he's at as a second striker. And me and Mila have talked about this in our Saving the Galaxy series. So I'll turn it over to Mila before I kind of maybe pose a solution.
I mean, I think you worded it basically to the T. He's effective on little touches. So what's going to happen if we can get him more touches? And I think that just identifies the main problem that the Galaxy are having, maybe even for the past 2 seasons, is that we don't have a box-to-box midfielder anymore. So we have Cerrillo, who's very good at playing the 6, playing those long balls. But what I want to see more out of him is being able to connect defense to attack, and which is basically what's missing. The reason we can't utilize Marco Reus is because the ball cannot get to Marco Reus. And as easy it is to say, like Lesnes or Yoshida can just override that. Like that's not his game. That's not their game. We need someone to step in the midfield to be able to connect our offense and our defense. Because right now it feels a little discombobulated. And I think that's where a lot of our frustration as fans is coming from. But yeah, I don't necessarily think it's any one person's fault that this isn't working, but I think Vanny is asking a lot out of our young, unexperienced players who don't really have a role yet in this team to be an all-around box-to-box connecting midfielder, which is just like one of the most complete roles in the game. We barely have it anymore in football. Like it's asking a lot for an MLS side, in my opinion.
Definitely, especially these young MLS kids, right? I think all of that is really interesting. I agree with you, Dylan. I agree with you, Mila, that this isn't a Marco Reus problem. When he gets the ball, he's fantastic, and we've seen that. And part of that can be part of the system. I started with this. I think Marco Reus in that area, it's good, but we just have such a big vacuum in that midfield, and that seems to be hurting us on both sides of the ball. I am almost a little bit okay sacrificing a little bit of attack or a little bit, right, just to get us past that midfield and solve that first issue. Again, we're supposed to have these quality DPs. They should be able to carry an attack, especially with someone like Klaus now, who we've seen it has added so much to this Galaxy forward line. So you think you can sacrifice a little bit of that Marco Reus in the final third just to get the ball up there in the first place. Like you mentioned, Mila, there isn't anybody who to really transition the ball. We saw a little bit of that from Sanabria against Charlotte, but I think that goes into something else that we might want to be talking about, which is, the Greg Vanny kind of making these maybe not quite the right decisions. You mentioned it, Mila. Marco Reus is probably misused. There is a massive issue on how to get him the ball. But we just don't have that. And I think, again, like I mentioned, the closest thing I feel like we've seen this season is Lucas Sanabria against Charlotte. I felt he had a great performance. He's had a really, really good start to the season. We put out some numbers earlier this year where there were games, I think it was against New York, where he even had more line-breaking passes than a player like Marco Reus, who we just talked about. That's his fantastic ability. Sanabria evolved in a lot of those goals, especially that first one against Charlotte. Transition, I think the forward passing for me, which is what I want Marco Reus to be doing, is us getting that ball from the midfield to the attack. Sanabria, I thought, did that brilliantly against Charlotte. Like, to Mila's point, Charlotte was really, really bad. It was maybe a great
platform. You're right. Like, yes, that's a major point to me. But
Sanabria was great. And then in the next game, my thing is that Vanny takes him off, and we kind of see that midfield vacuum reappear again. So that was kind of a big point for me. What was the thinking behind taking out Sanabria and switching that up when it looked good? For me, that was a big mistake. And I guess I want to hear what you guys think about whether it is or isn't a mistake.
I kind of have a question for everyone. And it's kind of like pretend you're Vanny. When you make the decision to take Sanabria out for Reus, what exactly is Elijah Winder role in the midfield? Because Sanabria is the closest thing to that box-to-box that we were talking about. It might be a little clunky right now, but he's the closest thing we have. So what do you guys think Vanny was trying to accomplish with playing Winder over Sanabria?
Anthony, I'm gonna let you go for this first while I kind of ponder on that question, because it's a good one.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a great question. And you know what I mean? Part of it is like, hey, why don't you roll with the hot hand? You hear it in other sports all the time. And I think part of it is, Greg is still experimenting with some lineups. That's what it looked like from an outsider's perspective. But at the same time, he's at a moment in time where every decision that he makes is going to be under a microscope. You know what I mean? You start out winless for 16, last season. This season, that seat's going to be a little warm. And every decision that he makes is going to be under a microscope, realistically. And who knows, maybe he thought Winder was going to have a breakout game the same way that Sanabria did against Charlotte. And to be quite honest with you, they need Winder to have one of those big breakout games to establish himself, for one, his confidence, and then two, like we all mentioned, there's a big hole in the Galaxy midfield, especially when it's time to make substitutions. There's a huge drop off. And I think if Winder can, start to fill in that gap a little bit more, maybe he starts to fill in a little bit of that role of like what Sanabria was doing against Charlotte. I think that's the ideal of what they want out of their midfielders. I don't know if they're going to get that out of him, though. It seems like a confidence thing, and I don't know if he's fully confident right now.
I think that the leap that they're asking Winder to make is too big. And I think that's where your question kind of lies, Mila, is like Winder is a young player. He's a flawed player, but when you put him in a system where everyone around him kind of supports him and uplifts him, he can be a very useful player. He's pretty tight on the ball. Yeah. And even in the game against Colorado, he still had like a 90% pass completion on low passing percentage.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I don't think he's doing anything wrong, but it does seem like a young guy who's not trying to make too many mistakes. So the ball never goes fucking forward.
Exactly. To me, that's not an Elijah thing.
Because you
and that's a Vanny thing.
No, yes and no.
Like why are you putting that player in that position?
Don't turn. Like he's choosing not to look over his shoulder and turn. Vanny can't do that for him.
Definitely.
So this is where I get frustrated. There's no coach telling their players not to check their shoulder and then take the space if there's space. So these are decisions that our players are making. And y'all know I'm not a big fan of Vanny, but I will fucking give him this one. Like, this is not his fault necessarily. What I do think could be his fault is saying Winder play this role and it's the Sanabria role, and it's causing confusion.
That's my point. That's my exact point.
Because
asking him to do something he's not ready to do right now.
I don't see Winder as an 8.
Do you see him as a 6?
No, like that's the thing. I don't really know his role on the team. That's also why I asked the question.
This is the issue: is I don't think Vanny knows either, because from all this,
you can't play him in the double pivot then, because like you were saying, if like we're trying to bring him up, don't make him one of the most pivotal pieces in our system.
I 100% agree. I think this is the biggest issue. We saw it at CVI up close and personal. Was he and even admitted it? He was like, we tried to play Winder advanced with Royce, so we were just playing a lone 6, and it didn't work. And then he went in with the game against Charlotte where he was playing kind of as a dual 8. I saw him more of as the defensive 6, right? The guy that was just being the backboard for passes, and it worked really well. And in this game, we asked him to be the lone 6 again. And that was my biggest issue with Cerrillo dropping in, is when you drop, so like visualize it with me, when you drop in your 6 into the back line and you have Marco Royce up top as the second striker with Klaus, there's a one-man midfield. And to your point, Elijah Winder is not that level of player. I don't know if there's many players in world football that can do that. Like we're talking about like Rodri as a one-man midfield that can do it. Like not like I'm talking about like high-class US players that I've seen fail in that exact same structure. And to the Charlotte point, Lucas Della Torre looked like shit doing the exact same thing. And so I have an issue with, maybe it's just we're trying to experiment too much in a period where last season was really crappy. And we had chances to experiment with this exact player with the exact same midfields, and we didn't do it. And I sent it in our group chat earlier. We haven't had a back-to-back same 11 in MLS competition since that semifinal run. Like the quarter into the semi with Seattle, like I couldn't find a game where we went back-to-back matches with the same exact lineup in MLS play. That's crazy. And a game where we won 3-0, we went into it next week in a difficult environment where I thought we needed legs, and we switched it up. That's to your point about the news, like this idea that the news system still works. I think it does, but I think we just shot ourselves in the foot with the game plan. And then Peck obviously shot it clean off. Like it was hobbled,
Yeah.
and then he like took a bazooka to it.
Right. And I mean, to their point, up to that point, before the red card, I mean, it was 1-1. They were defending well
The
enough.
momentum was
You know,
there.
they weren't defending spectacular. They weren't terrible. You know what I mean? Like they were in it.
Right.
So who knows what could have happened had that red card doesn't happen. You know, like it hasn't been all bad. And I think Greg mentioned something like that. I can't remember if it was after the Charlotte game or which game it was, but he was saying like, hey, you know what? We've been defending our asses off. You know, and before the Colorado game, it's true. You know, they hadn't really conceded much, so
yeah,
they're doing well on the defensive end. They're still able to score some goals, but you know, like we're saying, the midfield has just been overwhelmed.
Yeah, I just find it crazy. The one game we won 3-0, we didn't go back to it with the fully available line. We unless the idea was we were resting for
Wednesday, yeah,
that could be right because it was 5 games in 16
something like that.
This current stretch. So maybe
I don't know why maybe this. I said this on our podcast, but the idea of like you can't have both cakes and eat both cakes. You have to pick one eventually. I don't think that this Jamaican side, regardless, really is at the talent level of our team, even if it's playing depth and backup, where we should be concerned about rotating. We're also 4 weeks into the season. Like if these guys aren't fit 4 games into the season, I don't know what we're doing from a health and perspective. Like the only guy that I care about, or the 2 guys that I'm like, yeah, they probably should be playing heavy minutes like that, is Royce and Maya. But like Sanabria, like, are we resting Sanabria?
Right.
I don't know.
Definitely.
I don't believe that we're resting anyone.
You don't think so?
I like to my other point of I don't like Vanny. It just seems like we're stuck with this. Like we don't really know. He doesn't know what to do. I have no control. You guys have no control. He's like you're saying, he's stuck between 2 minds, and I think the fact that our DP wingers are not performing makes it 10 times harder. Because we, especially just like the way this league is run, you have 3 DP spots. If 2 of them are wingers, we are playing a fucking formation with wingers. There's no question about it. Whereas like in any other league, we can maybe take them out of the equation for a little bit, make them earn their spot back, but we don't have that luxury here. So we have to force them to play well or force them to contribute, and they're not doing it right now, which scares me. That was just a little tidbit on my fear of the system. I don't really know if it's sustainable.
I love all of that. I think to wrap this segment up, everybody I feel like brought some issues with the system, or at least what we're seeing, the version of the system that we're seeing. And despite that, the Galaxy have been in positions in basically every game they've been in to take points. I'm not going to count, at least in the league, I'm not going to count the Panama game. I'm not going to count the game here at the CONCACAF Champions. We make that competition too hard for whatever reason. I'm not looking at it. In terms of the league, though, every single game against New York, we were winning, looked in control. It was comfortable until the red card. Charlotte was Charlotte. We won. It was fantastic. Nobody got a red card. Nobody shot the team in the foot. So the system did its thing. It was probably a weaker thing, but against another team, that could be another 1-0 like it would have been against New York. And then this next league game against Colorado, we're 1-1. We're level. It looks like we're in the ascendancy. And again, it looks like we're in a position to take a point. Taking a point away in Colorado, I feel like at the end of the day, most of us would have been happy. Sure, we lost the lead. You could look at it that way. But a point away in Colorado, hell freaking yeah. I'm taking that. But it just fell apart. The Galaxy players shoot themselves in the foot. So I think despite all the very valid and very true things that are wrong with the system that you guys brought up, it still puts us in positions to get points. It's just the players failing us. And I think that's where we start to transition. And yet, in my article, we talked specifically about Peck, but I think it is good to talk about all the DPs and DPs taking a step forward. And like Peck did in that game, he got only his second goal contribution, his second assist. But then right after, he takes 2 steps backwards. And it feels like it's kind of a similar situation with Paintsill. At the start of the season, we talked about it in Cosmos. He looked like the hotter hand of him and Peck. And now it's kind of cooled down as well. 1 step forward, 2 step back. And it's kind of the same idea with both of them. So I said what I said in the article. but I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. I think Mila, I want to hear you kick this off.
Hold on. Let me figure out how to word this. All right. I'm drawing comparisons to Chelsea. I'm starting with this. I don't know if Anthony or Andrew, if you guys follow the Premier League at all, but Chelsea have dropped 17 points from winning positions.
I saw your co-host mention that. I saw that clip.
Yep. I'm going to be quoting Grant a lot right here. And they have almost a full 11 of red cards.
Mm-hmm.
We're 3 games in. We have 2 of our 11 that have red cards. So, like, yes, it's all fine and dandy. If we keep moving and keep continuing to play well, minus the red cards, we can continue to move forward. But if we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot this consistently, like, what are we even expecting? Because Chelsea were in a title race earlier in the season, and they repeatedly have dragged themselves out of it. I'm just hoping that we don't do the same, honestly. And the big thing with Chelsea is that we harp on the lack of leadership. I don't think the Galaxy have a lack of leadership, which makes this even more mind-boggling to me. Like, what are we doing? These are dumb yellow cards, second yellows. These aren't just reckless or trying to save the game for us, but they're foolish. So that's where I'm just concerned overall. I do think we are moving forward in a good direction with the defense, but how can we how are we going to throw it all away after building a structure? Like, it just doesn't make, it's like building a gigantic wall and then leaving the front door open.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what they did on Saturday. They played well for an hour and then threw it all away in 5 minutes.
Exactly. And this my main worry is that there's two things that can happen in my head. We hold on defensively, structurally, we maintain, and then our DPs start firing again, and we take off. And not many people are catching us. Or the defense doesn't stay consistent. They lose a bit of that consistency, and our DPs are not firing. We're not going to have a very fun season. I can guarantee that.
Yeah. It feels like we're right on the cliff's edge, either about to rise up to something kind of like a 2024 Galaxy, and it feels like we're about to fall into a 2025 Galaxy as well. That's a really interesting way of putting it. But I think just to sum it up as well, one of the last lines of my article, there isn't a coach or a system on earth that can outcoach a team getting red cards every single time. So I think that's just a nice little way to sum that up. But to kind of go back to the DPs on what Mila mentioned, I think the defense is going to do its thing. I love this Glesnes extension because it's probably going to be a massive part of that. But as long as you have Glesnes there, it feels like this defense can be stable. It feels like the major key. But I'm not too worried necessarily about the defense. Greg Vanney isn't. He obviously doesn't give a shit about anything else besides the defense. So I'm a little bit concerned there, but I'm definitely concerned about these Ps because already they're kind of not at any type of rate right now. So
can we frame that in a different way?
Please.
Because I am not worried about one DP. In terms of our one step forward, we signed a dude who has been fucking awesome. Yes, every single game that he has played in.
We're only talking about DP wingers, Dylan, in a negative light.
Okay, so everything towards the bylines we're like just not happy with. But I think that the spine is, when you talk about one step forward, that's where I look at it. It's the floor of this team is
your video
so
on that
much
was
higher.
Great. Yeah,
it's so much higher, and I am super critical of Greg Vanney. I've been for a long time, but what I can tell you is I think the out of possession shape is fantastic. The 4-4-2, I talked about it all summer, and then we went into it this year, and it's been great. We have not conceded when we've been in that shape. We've only I think we've conceded once in that shape, and it was the first game of the season in CCC in Panama. But outside of that, we've conceded down a man or off a penalty. So Greg Vanney, for me, he gets a bunch of check marks in some of the areas. But I think to Mila's point, like, I've been hypercritical, but what is he supposed to do when two of his highest paid players have not been firing? And in this league, maybe that's what it is.
No, that leads me to an interesting question that I think I'm gonna like turn it right over to
Mhm.
Dylan. Let's say these or sorry, to Anthony. Let's say these DPs stop or aren't performing; they continue not performing. What's your decision in the summer? What's your decision in April? Are you holding on to one? Are you holding on to both? Are you cutting one? Are you cutting both? What are you feeling if, let's say, Peck and Painter are at a similar clip, where it's one goal contribution every 3-4 games?
I mean, I think business wise, the Galaxy were really hoping that one of these guys takes the next step, especially for Peck. You know what I mean? He was the newcomer of the year last year. I mean, there were rumors about, maybe some team from the Prem circling, maybe
Lots
who
of La
was it?
Liga.
Leon, right? Like
Mhm.
teams from League One, so there were rumors that teams wanted him, and the Galaxy, I'm sure, want to make their money back on that investment that they made on Gabriel Peck. So I think if they had to pick one or the other, I think Peck probably has more upside, so that's who would probably bring in more dough. So I'm thinking from a purely business perspective, the Galaxy want to make their money back, right? I mean,
At
now
least
the
cut the
question is,
losses, right?
exactly, yeah. At the very least, cut your losses, because I mean, they spent, they cut a big check for these guys. Now the
10
the
million piece.
problem is, if by April or whatever these guys aren't producing, who's gonna want them? Who's going to take them for the price tag that the Galaxy are going to want? And I don't know if they're going to have any suitors, and then you're going to be stuck with two DPs.
Yeah, that's something we
Okay.
haven't heard brought up a lot, but I think that's a massive, massive, massive question mark for both the Galaxy, for Will Kuntz, and you imagine for the players themselves. Their whole point of making this move was to raise their stock. And then I even think about even bigger repercussions. Young stars in Brazil, young stars in Ghana, young stars anywhere down the road. Are they going to see the Galaxy as a less viable option to take that step to Europe? Are they going to be less willing to come play for us? The Galaxy is a Galaxy. It's going to have that exposure. But if any young players looking at those two recent stories and seeing how Paintsel was playing Champions League soccer and went to falling out in favor in the MLS. Gabriel Peck was the youngest player to start for Botafogo, had this really, really great potential, came to the Galaxy, and sort of the hype fizzled out. If you're a young player seeing that, maybe you think twice. This is very, very conjecture all the way down the road, but that's another thing that can happen if we don't see these DPs. There's just so much writing on them performing.
You mentioned Brazilians. I mean, you got to look at Nasi's situation too. If his situation doesn't get any better, let's say he doesn't get any minutes and he's out of here in June or July, whenever his transfer ends. That's not a good look for potential young Brazilians that might want to come stateside. Maybe that's a doomsday scenario, but it's possible.
It's tough. It's a tough dilemma. And I just recently put out the thing about Peck and how I'm currently feeling about him. He was supposed to become Superman. Like, I don't know where we've lost this in translation of, like, I called him a sidekick because I think that's what he's turning into, not what he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
He was always supposed to be the guy that we went, okay, he's got this really raw talent. Like you said, he had come from amazing pedigree. He came into the league, won Young Player of the Year, and was immediately thrown into MVP conversations for the next season.
Yeah.
He then was awful, couldn't figure out how to play when he was the main guy. And through the early portions of the season, I think he's struggling to deal with that pressure once again. And he's even got a guy next to him who's carrying the weight for him. And that's really where my concern is because this should be his team.
It should be. And that should be what you're asking out of a DP. But this is where the conversation has to be had. Because, again, I'm reiterating for maybe the 5th time this season, but this is not DP quality if you can only perform with Ricky Puig. And I think even now it's crazy to say, a lot of us probably still underrated Ricky Puig a little bit. And I don't think many Galaxy, hardly any, have anything bad to say about him. So that just tells you how important he is to our team. But also, like, I look back to last year, I have little flashbacks. Peck had every opportunity to put the ball in the fucking back of the net and just didn't. So I can't excuse it another year. He had a whole year to get the negative thoughts out of his head. Maybe he was tying too much of Ricky's return to his upward trajectory. That's another issue on him. So obviously this is all speculation, but we pay you a lot of money. You have a DP contract where other people don't. And again, Dylan and I just talked about it. Royce and Yoshida are getting slandered left and right. These guys took fucking paychecks to be here.
Yeah, that was a great point from your video last week. That kind of stopped me in my tracks when I heard it.
And they should be at the
again,
function. They're unk
He should
status.
be at the
Yeah.
right?
I don't know. I get really frustrated when the responsibility is placed on the wrong shoulders.
Agreed.
And in times like this, when a goal might just lift a little bit of pressure off the team, and our goal scorers aren't really firing, other than Yao Klaus.
And I'm glad you mentioned responsibility, because that red card, you know what I mean? You talk about responsibility as a DP, like, hey man, you just took your team right out of this game.
And potentially for the weekend game too, because Mila pointed this out. Like, Paintsel was hurt. We already knew he was out. There was already the sub made. He went and made that tackle knowing that if he missed it, he'd also be suspended for their next match against SKC at home, and they'd be down both DP wingers. Which I don't know how many teams have a winning percentage where 2 of their 3 DPs are missing. That's not a recipe for success. I can tell you that much. So I don't. Responsibility is a good word for it, because at this point in his career, he's not that young guy anymore that we should be like, oh, he can get away with
point, like being a young guy at Vasco da Gama, making an early debut in your career, like you're 23 now. Bro's been playing for a while.
Yeah, it's the Cam Newton effect, right? We give the grace to young guys.
Yeah. You eating cookies all the time. It's a funny guy.
Yep.
That's a great reference. Thank you for bringing that up. I needed that.
Unfortunately for Peck, we hope he's not getting any cookies. We hope, he's in timeout getting, that lesson drilled into his head. But
make him do cardio for a week.
More mine.
All of this is so valid. I think I just want to say this. I spoke with my mom. I messaged you guys when I was watching that game. I was watching it back with her, and if you guys saw the picture of my Twitter, her and I, massive Gabriel Peck stands. And she fell in love with the 2024 version, just like all of us did. And it really is a shame, because that player is there. I think just one of the biggest things, Dylan, is he has to realize that it has to come from him. Whoever mentioned this, I think it was Mila, but this idea of him tying his success to Ricky Puig's return, that was Mila. Yeah, that's probably, hitting very, very close to home. I think that just sounds, again, a speculation, but I think anybody would, when what you did with this person in 24 and you can't wait for him to be back in 25. I think it's just natural, even if you don't want to put your success on someone else's shoulders. When you've seen what that person can do from you, you just have that expectation. It's impossible. He's like, it's not Pavlov's dog, it's Ricky Puig's dog. And anytime there's that clicker or there's that pass, Peck gets excited, and it's just natural, right?
I think you're right in that sense. But more so, I don't like. We have TAM players for that.
Totally.
Yeah.
All of that.
We don't have
was
DPs
leading
that
me
get
to
lifted
say,
up by their fellow DPs. That's not the whole point of getting a DP.
Absolutely. I think just all of that to say, everything is valid. I don't want to take away from any of your guys' points, any of the criticism that I've made as well. But I can't help but feel for the guy. He is such a sweetheart. You look at his smile, and I don't know, maybe I got some bias in there. I grew up a pretty religious person, so to see him kind of just platform that and go through this tough time, I can imagine the things that he's been told in his circle, what he's hearing, and I think there's a massive pressure on him. I was thinking of this the other day. He's 23, right? We're 24. You guys are even a little bit older, but just this feeling of having to
that unk status on his man. Hey.
I don't know about you dinosaurs, but I've had to deal with this idea of maybe pushing or moving on past a dream, right? I don't know about you guys, but I think all of us dream about being soccer players, but there's a point where you push that back. And what's interesting with Gabriel Peck, his dream is to, represent Brazil. He hasn't been quiet about it. He wants to be at those World Cups. He wants to be a big European player and make that step. That's his dream. And when he was exploding in Brazil, when he came and made this move to the Galaxy, that looked like it would be this trampoline. You can't help but, I imagine, just have this feeling, if that's you and you're finally about to have this platform. Like, I think of Anthony with something that he's going on, have this platform to achieve a dream. You can't help but feel excited, like, man, I'm almost there. I can't get ready to work. But then to see how just things have unfolded and to have 2 years without the person who, when you were signed, was probably a massive selling point, right? To have 2 years of that and to see the dream just kind of slip away from your hands. I can't imagine what he's feeling. I can't imagine what he's going through. So I just want to say, on a personal level, all the support to Peck, all the encouragement to Peck. We're not saying this because we hate you, we don't like you. It's because we want this team to succeed and we want you to be a part of that success. So I think I just want to underline everything we're saying with that before I think maybe kind of moving on. Anybody, I think we could go one by one. Maybe Anthony, any closing thoughts, anything that you want to go back to that you didn't get to say earlier, or maybe just a synopsis of what you think the rest, what's coming for the Galaxy, just anything to wrap it up.
Of course, man. Thanks again for having me on, guys. It was nice to meet you, Dylan, Mila. It was really cool. This is cool, Andrew. I really appreciate it. But yeah, man, the Galaxy, they need the DPs to start producing. I mean, hopefully Paintsel, it's not a super serious injury and is able to come back soon enough. Klaus, he's been able to get the job done. They need Peck to step it up, and we'll see what impact a healthy Eric Tommy has in the midfield.
Sure.
But yeah, I think there's more questions and answers with this LA Galaxy squad a month in.
Yeah. I want to pass it over to you, Dylan. Any kind of wrapping thoughts, anything you want to leave the NGF listeners with?
Yeah, obviously, thanks for having us on. Obviously, you're always on our podcast. It's always cool to be on your show and let you do your thing and have you host and me not have to, because that's always a more pleasant experience for myself. Mila knows the trials and tribulations of having to host, and you're feeling it now too. It's a difficult task, so kudos to you for picking up the slack. My closing remarks on this video and all this stuff is, I am not saying this from a place of hate. I really like Gabriel Peck, and I really like Joseph Paintsel. But the one thing that I'm going to pride myself on doing this and trying to get into this sphere is I am a fan, and I have standards for my teams and my players. And I have no allegiance to any of these guys. Like, I root for my club. I don't root for Gabriel Peck or Joseph Paintsel for the idea of I'm a fanboy. I'm not Fan FC. I'm Club FC. And I want Peck to be the best player that he can be for the Galaxy. And when I'm being critical, it's just because I know his talent level and I know what he can be. So it might come off as hateful. I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to be critical within a lens of this team can be better. And I think it's really good. We just keep shooting ourselves in the foot, and he happens to be our highest paid player. Or one of them. I think he might be without Ricky out.
He guaranteed $2.5 million this year.
That might just be his
cap.
Don't
care if there's a Ricky hole in your heart. Like, I really do not give a fuck. All due respect.
Totally.
I gotta keep harping on this though. Like, we only have 3 of these slots. One of the 3 is producing. Like, I can't feel bad for him. I'm sorry.
Totally. No.
Like,
and
this is what you're meant to do when you sign the fucking contract.
Definitely.
And
you
if
mentioned
you really
that
want to go to the World Cup, then this is so much worse. Like,
right, yeah.
You can't let Ricky Puig be the guy that takes you to the World Cup. He plays for Spain and doesn't make the Spanish team.
Good point.
So it's like, what exactly? Like, when are you gonna put some responsibility on yourself? I know this is all you. This is all like coming from your head. Like, this isn't even something Peck has really come out and said. But now's the time, like, to use this 1-match suspension to sit in a dark room and contemplate everything and come back with a vengeance. Because I'm genuinely begging Vanny to just try something. Don't play wingers. Eric Tommy looked slow as shit when he came on. So I don't want to see that. Double pivot, 3 attacking mids in front of him. Go.
Score some goals. Yeah.
Let the chips fall where they may.
Play some defense.
Yeah.
There's less of an issue with the transition or the connecting because we have a double pivot. Royce will have partners to his left and his right. Yao Klaus is Yao Klaus. We have no DP wingers for this game. So go fucking try it.
Yeah.
Those were my closing remarks.
I love it. I think just to touch on, what you started that with, all of us here have jobs. We all have signed a contract. I'm a salesman, for example. You said that earlier today, and it got me thinking on my drive. If I just didn't make sales for a couple of months, I would get fired. It's in my that is the standard. And I don't make $2 million a year. I make a lot less than $2 million a year. And so it's the same pressure that all of us deal with. I know I led with empathy earlier, but it's just the working man's pressure. You gotta work to eat, right? You gotta earn it. So I think it's like you said, Mila, we gotta make sure Peck starts earning his food, so we all eat. But some really, really fantastic stuff, guys. This was a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to doing this in the future. If you guys can hop on later on, I'd appreciate it. But as for everybody else, thanks so much for sticking with us here at NGF. Anthony, where can the people find you?
Yeah, feel free to follow me. I'm on Twitter or X, whatever y'all call it now. It's by Anthony BA. You can follow me on Instagram, by Anthony Bautista, and then my TikTok is the same handle. So yeah, follow me there. Thank you though. I appreciate it, and who knows, maybe I'll be back soon.
Looking forward to it, man. Dylan, Mila, I don't know if you guys want to co-do this or plug your guys' own thing, but I always appreciate how you guys open the floor for me. So it's an honor to kind of reciprocate that. Let the people know where to find you.
Mila, you want to do clubs, and I'll take Cosmos?
Sure.
Okay. Do your first.
Thanks for writing the article, Andrew. It was a very nice read, and I'm glad we talked about it. Wait.
You do Prem, I'll do Cosmos, yeah.
Clash of Clubs. We talk about mainly Man City, Man United, and Chelsea. We will hate on Arsenal, hate on Liverpool. If anyone wants to come on and defend your team, feel free. But yeah, it's good banter. I feel like we're all pretty tapped in to world football, so we know our stuff. And if you want something more argumentative than our Galaxy media, then check that out.
Yeah, I'll start with Mila's point about the article being very good. It's what made this whole video happen, was through those points. Anthony, pleasure getting to meet you and speak with you, and everyone should check out your writing and your TikTok videos. They're all great. Like I was telling him before, like I got to finally put a face to the name, and it ended up being your TikTok videos, and I was like, oh, it's perfect. So it's super cool getting to chat with you guys, and I love the Galaxy. But Cosmos, you know where to find us. Andrew's on the show every single week. He is a part of the show. He lives, breathes Galaxy, as we all do. We're trying to build within this community. I assume that we're ruffling some feathers with some of our takes, but like I always say, we are a fan. Me and Mila and Andrew and Dari, we're all fans, and I'm going to give it to you how I feel in the moment. And I promise, I have a feeling we're going to be better, and I think we're going to have more positive stuff to talk about. It just, there's some...
They got to give us positive stuff to talking about.
There's just been some lingering... When you start a podcast and it was awful for an entire year to start, you're going to have to prove it to me that I can be happy. It's like being in a very abusive relationship and then them being like, here's some cookies. And then you're like, oh, cookies. And then the next week they piss in your cookies. Like you gotta give me something. So yeah, follow us there so you can get awesome content like me talking about pissing in cookies.
Definitely do. The links for everybody are going to be in the bio. One more time, a massive thank you to Anthony, Dylan, Mila. Such a pleasure. If you guys enjoyed this, definitely subscribe to NGF. We got lots of great coverage of this Galaxy season. You can see us on Twitter at NGF Andrew, like you see on the screen. We're here on YouTube, Nuestra Galaxia Futbolera. Same thing on Instagram. And you can find the articles that this video was based on at Los Angeles Sports Nation. Got new stuff coming there every week. Got some great coverage coming from the press conference. Be sure to follow everything. We got some good clips from press conferences. If you want to feel like you're in that press box, NGF and everybody here is a great way to do that. So we appreciate you following along. We're hoping to enjoy a better Galaxy season together. And regardless, we can't wait to talk about it with you. So thanks again for sticking with NGF, and we'll see you in the next one.